Hey everybody, this is Jennifer with Northwest Stamper, and today I wanted to take some time to share with you a little about Blendabilities. Now, some of you are already familiar with these markers. They are the alcohol ink markers that Stampin' Up has put out that match the colors of some of the different Stampin' Up colors. Here is a chart. I know it's probably a little bit hard to read, of all of the colors except for there are 4 more that are new in the occasions catalog. So this was everything that was current up until last month, and then now there's also Wild Wasabi, Soft Sky, Bermuda Bay, and Pink Pirouette. So there's 4 more just to know. But I've talked to some people who have been curious about them but haven't used them, so I wanted to give a few tips and tricks on how you could actually use these markers in your projects. Here are a few examples that are using them for coloring, and I'm going to actually do a little bit of stamping doing this image here for you, but I wanted to talk about some of these. But I also wanted to say that while this is great for your flower cards, so here's another one using Blendabilities for coloring in different flowers, it's also really fun for other things too. So this is another Hostess set using to color in, but you can use it for things like cakes. You can use it for animals. You can even use it on cards like this. It doesn't look like it's one that you should be able to color in, but I used it to shade these stripes so that it makes it look a little bit more rounded, kind of like the Pepsi logo, I guess it makes me think. So you can use them for all kinds of things, and I love them because they help give dimension. They help really make them pop. And if you color with your regular markers, it's really cute, but you can't quite get this blended dimension that you can get with your Blendabilities. Now, you see this and you go, oh, that's really pretty. I can never do that. Totally false. You can do it. I know you can. The thing is that's great is I'll show you with this, is that it doesn't actually take, you don't have to be a master artist to get something that looks like this. So I'm starting here with my Bloom with Hope stamp set. Now this is actually a Hostess stamp set from Stampin' Up. So with a $150 order or a party, you can get it for free. I love it for the words, but I also love it because these are all great for coloring in. Anything that's line art with gaps is great. So I'm taking this flower and I'm taking my Memento ink. Now this ink, it's a dye ink, but it's kind of an interesting formula. The thing with dye inks and the alcohol markers is that sometimes they work together just fine. Sometimes they give you smudging and smearing, and it just is not a pretty sight. So the Memento ink is well known across the industry as being great for using with alcohol markers for drying and not smearing. So this is the one that's recommended to use. You can use some of the other Stampin' Up classic colors, but unfortunately black is not one of the ones that's recommended. So you can buy this from Stampin' Up when you buy your markers. So that's always just kind of a good bonus to have there. You definitely do not want to use your StazOn ink. StazOn is an alcohol ink, and then the alcohol, when it's mixed with alcohol markers, it wants to play the blending game, so it will try to blend in too, and unless you want black blending into your colors, not the best. So there's 2 techniques for actually doing your coloring. With these pens, they have a pen tip here, and then you have a brush tip, which is what I like to use. And all of these pens come in a light, oops, I should have started with my light, a light, a medium, and a dark. And so you can either start from your lightest and go to your darkest, or you can start from your dark and go to light. In a lot of cases, I'll start with my light and I will just color in. And the nice thing is, because I know I'm going to be blending and doing other things, I just don't pay too much attention. I just sort of scrub and color. And this flower here is just on the limit of how big of a space you could do all at one time. Anything bigger than this, you're only going to want to do small chunks at a time. Otherwise the alcohol starts to evaporate and dry too quickly that it won't let you blend nicely. So you can start with the light and then go to the medium. If you have a bigger space, you could use this pen tip or the brush tip. If it's a really small space here, you could use the pen tip. And all you're doing is you're starting to just shade in areas that are darker, that maybe are shadier that there's edges, they're behind petals, whatever you want to do. And the thing is, you can be kind of rough and it doesn't look all that pretty and snazzy. But then you go back down, drop down a shade, so I just did medium, so I go to my light. And now I'm going to take the pen tip and I'm going to really lightly just kind of start blending a little. And you're just sort of going in spirally circles along the edges. You don't want to cover over the whole thing. You don't want to do big strokes. Just do a little bit because you're just going to start with getting it to sort of blend into the rest of the flower. And you can just kind of do a guessing game. If you feel like you really need something to hold on to, you can take, say, an extra clear block or your ink pad or your drink that's on your table and say, this is going to be my sun, the lamp, whatever is shining on the flower. And you can put it here and say, okay, the light's going this way, so everything that's behind it is dark. If that's helpful for you, that is great, because then you kind of have something that's always a remembrance. If you don't need it, don't worry about it. So now I've done my medium and my light. So then I go to the dark, and I almost always use the pen tip when I get to the darkest point because I just want really fine control. And again, I'm just going back through and highlighting, not quite as deeply, some of these darker areas where I think maybe it's not going to show as much. And so I can do that, and again, step back down one color. So now I've gone back down to my medium, and if you want, you can just kind of blend it in. Now, when I say blending, it is what it really is doing. So the thing to think about when you're doing this is every time you take a marker and pick it to your paper, what you're doing is you're pushing the ink around. That's all it's doing, is it's just saying, okay, you've added more, you've added more. So think of it kind of like finger painting. If you added more on, you're just adding more color. So even if you're going over with your lightest color again, like say I just want to kind of soften in here and I'm going over with my lightest, you're still adding color. So you're still making it just a little bit richer or deeper. So you can go through until you're satisfied, and then I recommend let it dry. So this is actually the Night of Navy pen set, and that's what I used here. And you can see that when you first color it, it's a little bit darker, and then it dries and it lightens up a little bit. So let it sit and rest and see what you think from there. Now, the other thing you can do is if you don't want to go light to dark, if you feel that there's something that's just going to make it too dark for you, you can always start with dark. And this is some people's preference, is they will take, because what this does is this actually, I think, gives you a smoother blend, but you have to be a little bit more confident on where you're coloring. So what you would do is you would start with your darkest and just add a little bit of color in here. And then set that aside. So I've kept a lot of the white. Now I jump up to my medium and I'm going to add in a little bit more. And this is small enough, I should probably be using my pen tip here. And again, see, it's looking really dark, but this is where we start. We go to our lightest color, and we're going to fill in all the spaces. And I just come in here. And then I'm not coloring over the darkest part, I'm just going to the darker parts, because then I can go back through and take my pen tip and start blending and start pushing the darker colors up into the lighter colors. So when you do it this way, this going from dark to light gives you more control on making sure your outer points stay the lightest color that they can possibly stay. You just have to be, like I said, a little bit more comfortable in those dark colors getting started. Now, you can take, there are some great things to do with like bigger images. For example, this is just a scrap that I've done with this blended bloom. So much fun to color, but this is a case where this is going to be too big. You don't want to do all of your lightest, then your medium and your dark, because things will start to dry. So when you go to color this, in this case I'm using my cherry cobbler, what I would do is I would start by just coloring in some of the, maybe 2 or 3 of the petals, just a little bit of the flower. Don't have to worry about going too far, too deep. I'm not worrying about being super precise as I get in near the middle. I'm just trying to get a little bit of coloring in. And I normally we do about 3 petals. You could do a little bit more, a little bit less, but I'm a little impatient, so I can't really go 1 petal at a time. That's, like I said, don't have the patience for that. So you go light, then you can come in here. These are big enough. I might do a little bit with my brush here to do my mediums. And I come around because I'll say that petal's on top. Maybe there's a little shadowing there, a little bit along here. Not usually always in the middle because most petals kind of come out. So I can do that. If I want to do some blending now, I jump back to my lightest and just really lightly along the edges. Just kind of do that. And it's gonna look not quite right when you do it one at a time like this. Then go do your darkest. But this is one of those cases where I promise that as you do it, keep going. Don't give up. Don't think, oh, this is looking terrible, I need to start over. Because once you start getting all of the pieces in place, once you've started coloring more of it, it'll all start coming together and you'll go, oh, hey, actually, this looks pretty nice. So I just did a little bit of highlighting there, and then I'm going to just step back to my medium here and just sort of do a little bit of blending where I think it needs to go. And if you feel that those are still too dark, you can always kind of do the finishing blend with the lightest, getting it into that lightest spot. So that is how you do your basic coloring. Now, if you have something that's too dark or you just really is not looking as blended as you would like, that's when you grab your color blender, or the color lifter, I think is what it is actually called. Okay, so this is the color lifter. It is not an eraser, so do not think if you go outside the lines that this is going to magically erase things, because that's what I thought, and it's not how it works. What this is great for is it's great for softening. It's for the final blending. If you think, oh, these are too striped, I need a little bit of something to soften it. It's clear. Well, yes, it's clear. There's no pigment. So what this is doing is it's activating, kind of remember that finger painting analogy I had before, where this is just letting you blend and push the colors around without adding more color. So you can just kind of come in here and smooth things out. You can use the pen tip, you can use the brush tip, and it's just going to push those colors around for you. Sometimes for little details it's nice to use your pen, just because you can kind of push, blend it all out. It's also good if you get something that's too dark, you can come through and say, oh, I really want to lighten this edge. You can push the color away and really lighten it down if you need. So, not necessarily the best example there, but this is what it's really great for. And I've found some people that as you're coloring, let me see, I can do it sort of a little demo here on the side, that as you come through and you color and you say, okay, I have my dark, and then I have my medium, and I have my light, and I'm trying to get them to all blend nicely together. Sometimes you find that one area is not blending quite as much as you'd like. And like I said, that is, so I go in here and I'm like, oh, I wish that would be just a little bit more blended. That's where you can come through with this and just kind of go. You can kind of smooth through all of your colors. So it is a nice just sort of blending touch. It's also good if you need something that's lighter, so in cases where you've colored through with your lightest color, but you really want, maybe for effect, you want something to be just a little bit lighter in the center, you can use this to help lighten just that spot. Like I said, it's not an eraser, but you can use it to help lighten up a central spot. And as you can see here, especially when you're using this color lifter, it really does saturate and it can come through. So make sure you have something underneath your markers as you're coloring. Okay, the last thing I wanted to share with you is just this idea of it's not just for coloring your images. You can use it to color your paper. So that's what this is this is some of the back to black paper that we have. So it's black and white, and I just colored it. All I did is just took my markers and did the same thing we were doing with the flowers. You can just color. You can go into the black, it doesn't matter because it's not going to notice. Color a little bit, add your medium, maybe part way, add your dark at the top. And when it all dries, it'll give you this really pretty gradient as it kind of comes through here. So you'll see after it finishes drying that you get this nice dark to light look. You can also use it with your rhinestones and pearls. These were all our regular white rhinestones, clear rhinestones and white pearls. And all I did was take my markers, so this is with the light, medium, and dark, is I took them and I just colored straight on top. You can also, if you have the new epoxy stickers from the Occasions catalog here, you can do the same thing where you just take your marker, pull it out, color straight on top, and you're going to get that color that matches exactly with your project. And that's why it's nice that you have light, medium, and dark, is because you can control whether it's light, medium, or dark on here. As you can see here, there is a definite shade difference. The one thing I will say is that the rhinestones are they have a faceted edge. Anything you're doing the rough edge, you want to make sure you're using the pen tip of your marker. If you're not using that pen tip, you run the risk of chewing up the brush tip. Smooth things like the pearls, you can use this brush because it'll glide nicely over the tops of that. So that is your quick and dirty, or maybe not so quick, but the run through of your basics for using Blendabilities. I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to leave me a comment or shoot me an email at jennifer@nwstamper.com. I'd be happy to talk with you about these and give you some more tips and information. If you have started your collection, if you haven't finished your collection, I should say, know that during celebration, so during the months of January, February, and March, if you place a $50 order of any Stampin' Up! Products, in that order you can pick any one item from the celebration catalog for free. And one of the things that they let you pick is any of these sets of markers. Now, a set of marker means you get all 3 of these colors in one box. So you say, I want the cherry cobbler markers, you get all 3 of these. These can be something that you get for free with every $50 you spend. So it's a great way to kind of finish out your collection, add a few colors that maybe you wished you had that you don't, and give them a try. So I love them. I think they're so much fun and they're much easier. So really the thing is to just relax, give it a shot, and maybe you'll have a few that just turn out too dark, so then you try it again and suddenly they start getting lighter and getting to look more like you really hoped they would be. But as you saw with this, you just scribble, you just color, and it turns out cute almost every single time. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you have a lot of fun. I look forward to sharing more with you in the future. Thanks so much. Have a great time stamping.